No matter what, I think we can all agree that 2016 has been a very scary year for a wide variety of reasons, and with every year there have been a lot of bad games to play. In the past on my website I've debated whether or not I should make a top 10 list of the worst games and best games of the year, but on the Seafoam Gaming website I never was sure how to present it because the fact that it was a list, and even though I've done lists on there in the past, it just wouldn't feel special, I thought. Well, now that I decided to start the Eternal Memories Countdown sub-series, I thought, what better way to start off this little sub-series of countdown videos than to go over something I wanted to do since last year. So ladies and gentlemen, here are the 10 worst games that came out in 2016. However, before we get into it, I'm gonna clarify the one rule that will apply to both this list and the upcoming Best Games of 2016 list. That rule being that if the game came out in North America in 2016, it will count. But if the game came out, let's say last November of 2015 in North America, but it came out in Europe like a few months ago, it will not count for this list because this is going off the North American priority. This also means no Japanese imports. I'm doing this for multiple reasons, one of which being so that it's 2016 games that are on the list, and the other reason being that if I let 2015 games get on the list because they came out in other countries late, we'd all know what would win number 1 on the best list, and that'd not be fair. So without further ado, let's get into the top 10 worst games of 2016. A developer that will appear many more times on this list is none other than Skunk Software, a Wii U publisher who has published so many bad games in the past year that makes me wonder if they are all made bad on purpose. The game that takes the number 10 spot is none other than the slot machine title Pharaoh's Riches. While it looks like an okay slot machine at first glance with pretty visuals and decent layout, the biggest problem I had with it is that there was little point in taking any risks in the first place. There's no goals to accomplish, no real risks for going into the negatives, and considering how it started off at an absurd price of $10, only to increase to $20 before it dropped to $6, there's no reason that you should waste a single moment with this game, even if it looks a bit nice. A high score chaser published by RC Maniacs, Avoider takes a 9th spot on my list. With a very simple premise to just avoid everything and get the highest score, the main reason the game ends up on this list is that it's, well, boring. There's little point in getting a high score, and because the controls are touch screen only for some reason, it just isn't that fun to play. I mean, it's a cheap game, sure, and it's an arcade throwback, but with little replay value and no point to showing the high score on Miiverse, this is an arcade throwback worth skipping. Yet another RC Maniacs game comes here in the form of Titan's Tower for the Wii U eShop. The title suffers from the exact same problems as Avoid in the sense that there's little reason to go for the high scores, and there's little to do in general. It's a short, repetitive experience, which along with some frame rate problems, leads to a dull budget game that's not worth picking up again, even for the low price. Jewel Quest had the potential to be a fun match-free puzzle game on the Wii U. Unfortunately, the biggest problem I had with the game comes from the fact that despite being a paid application, the game's level design feels like a free-to-play game. Because beating levels relies more on dumb luck than actual skill, because in order to complete a level in Jewel Quest, you have to complete a match on every single tile of the board. This means if jewels generate in a way that will make getting the corner tile impossible or downright infuriating, you are screwed and you have to try again. This doesn't happen near the end of the game, by the way, it happens shortly after the first few levels. For $5, you will get a lot of content for the price, but when the content isn't fun or fair, what's the point? Freeballing is one of the strangest games I've ever played. This Skunk Software title advertises itself as a drawing tool, where the main objective is drawing the gamepad in order to spawn a ball that will roll around on the creations. Sounds like a fun little side activity to do. But this is the entire game, and that's not right. To make things even worse, the game was priced at a whopping $10 when it first came out, and it doesn't even let you save your drawings. This is certainly a game to avoid at all costs, and even though the price decreased in recent months, that doesn't excuse the fact that it was priced so high in the first place. The final RC Maniacs game on our list is Jackpot 777. If you thought Pharaoh's Riches looked bad, wait until you see this game, because the presentation is bare bones, the music's awful, there's even less of a point to playing this seriously, and there's no sound effects. The game just feels empty, and despite it being a much better priced game than Pharaoh's Riches, this isn't even worth as a free game due to how boring and dull it is. Stay away from this game at all costs. But we are only halfway done with this list, so it's gonna get worse. Yet another Skunk Software title. Now I know my ABCs is a game that doesn't deserve to exist in any way, shape, or form. Edutainment titles are a good thing for young kids to play. I get that. I grew up with some like the Schoolhouse Walk game on computers. But when this game advertises that you'll learn the alphabet by spelling out each letter and practicing it, only for the actual drawing system to be nothing more than tap the dots in the correct order, the game feels like nothing more than a poor scam that's not even programmed well. Please, parents, for the love of everything, just teach the kids normally using a paper and pencil. The new 3DS seemed like a great system for Unity-made games. We could have gotten a ton of awesome exclusives on it that you couldn't find anywhere else, thanks to the power upgrade. But 2 years after launch, there's still barely any games exclusive to the system outside of old ports of Super Nintendo games, multi-platform titles, and a boring RPG. That is, except for the rare exception like Block Form. This game looks fucking hideous. But it's even worse when playing in person. I gave it the benefit of the doubt when I saw the screenshots and thought maybe it'll be better in person because graphics aren't always everything. But no, the controls are stiff, transitions are almost non-existent, and there's zero invincibility frames, making the game as a whole an unfair, boring, and frustrating mess. If these screenshots don't persuade you to stay away from this garbage, I have no clue what will. Considering how the developer claimed the game was made in a single hour, I have no idea who on earth thought it would be a good idea to sell this for $5! This is a full-blown scam at this point due to how horrible the game is, how short the game is, and how it's priced for $5 for something that wasn't even made that long. I cannot recommend that you check it out, even if it becomes a free game in the near future. This is definitely not the exclusive the new 3DS needed or deserved in any way, shape, or form. With the only good thing about it being that it has okay background music. Even with Block Form being an abysmal, terrible platformer, that doesn't even compare to these final 2 titles because they are the only games to get a 0 out of 10 on my website's review scale. And the number 2 spot goes to Piano Teacher from Skunk Software, a game that was advertised as a way to teach kids and adults how to play the piano. As someone who's never played the piano in my life, I expected nothing more than a simple, basic guide that would teach kids how to play the piano, but I didn't even get that. I didn't even get a basic tutorial on piano keys or whatnot. Despite the word teacher being in the title, the game offers no teaching whatsoever, because all Piano Teacher does is make you follow the keys in a specific order to play a song, just like a rhythm game. But does this all without ever teaching you a single term related to pianos. No sheet music, no instructions, nothing. It's just a generic rhythm game being sold under the guise as a piano teacher. The worst part of all, you can't even play these songs at your own pace once you get the hang of the game, otherwise you'll be penalized, therefore making it impossible for you to even teach yourself with this game in any way, shape, or form. That, combined with an absurd starting price of $40, makes this one of the biggest scams in the Wii U eShop. However, since my initial review, the game has been lowered to a $9 price tag. But that is still a ripoff and still a downright scam considering how this isn't even a teaching app. Go for in-depth guides on the internet instead, as spending any money on this horrible game is equal to throwing that amount of money in a fireplace. Ladies and gentlemen, the worst game of 2016 is none other than 6-Hand Video Poker for the Wii U eShop. It's depressing that the only games to have a 0 out of 10 come from the same publisher, Skunk Software. But you may be asking, what could be worse than Piano Teacher? Surely it at least advertises correctly, right? I mean, there's 6 hands and it's video poker. And you would be partially correct. But that's also the entire game. Just an endless cycle of poker that never ends and is very boring to play. Starting off at the price of $6, it's now $4, and it's still way too much for a boring, dull game that doesn't even deserve to exist, when there are much better alternatives in compilations, freeware computer games, and much more. At the very least, despite its scam-worthy presentation, Piano Teacher had stages with some sort of progression. But this? There's no point to this game. Back when I played it, I was utterly convinced that this was some sort of parody game that wasn't meant to be sold, but I was dead wrong. No matter what, this game, six-hand video poker, should be avoided by all means necessary. How the hell do you screw up poker so badly? And there you have it, the worst 10 games of 2016, in my opinion. All of them were pretty horrible, and even though there were a ton of bad games that felt like they shouldn't exist in general, those were only the bottom of the barrel, because there were a ton of mediocre to just poor games that I reviewed on the website this year. However, I decided it would be better to just go to the top 10 worst of them, instead of just all of them. Needless to say, I'll be back, who knows when, hopefully not too long, with my best games of 2016 list. I'll see you then, and in the meantime, bye!